I know this episode will get a lot of downloads just because of the title. The frustrating part is I'm going to share with you the exact strategy Jill used to make an extra $2,500 in just 2 hours, but the majority of people who listen to this podcast won't take any action. So let me ask you this. Are you going to be the person who listens to this podcast and takes action? Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast, where I, Selena Knight, share strategies, interview retail revolutionaries, and delve into the minds of e-commerce experts to help you grow a profitable, independent retail or e-commerce business. If you're stuck in a rut, or if you feel like business is way harder than it should be, or you've overachieved all of the things that you've set out to and are wondering what to do next, or how do I even make this better? I know that you're going to love today's episode. Hey there, super excited to have you here listening to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. If you've been listening for a while, welcome back and thank you so much for having me inside of your eardrums. And if you're brand new, this is an awesome episode to get started with because you'll find out in this episode that I can be a little bit of a hard ass. Yes, I am the kind of person who will spur you on to take action. In fact, I get super frustrated when people have the answers right in front of them and don't take action. I mean, it can be easy to find excuses to not get stuff done, but when someone is literally handing you a strategy that costs nothing to implement or that doesn't take an awful lot of time, it just means you got to stop faffing about with the uploading products to the website or playing around in Canva to make graphics or spending gazillion hours on Instagram, and instead put some focused energy into action that gets results. And today I'm going to share with you a story about Jill and her store and how she managed to make an extra $2,500 in just 2 hours. But I mentioned at the beginning of this episode in the pre-roll that I'm going to give you the strategy. Like you don't have to buy anything. You don't even have to download anything. You just have to listen to this episode. But for me, the frustrating part is, and I see this over and over again, I spent way too much time inside of Facebook groups in my downtime in the last week when we were down at the beach house. And over again, I see people asking questions, retailers and e-commerce store owners saying, oh, I've got a website or a physical store and I'm just not making any money. What do I need to do? I mean, it's probably not the answer that you want to hear, but you got to step up and be the CEO of your business and take control instead of just turning up every day, being a shopkeeper and hoping things will get better. So today, Jill is going to inspire you to take some of that focused action that gets results. And I want you to listen to this episode with your CEO hat on. So I want you to listen to it and go, right, what did Jill do that I could do? Or what did Jill not do that I could do to make this even better? Because this same strategy is going to apply to every single person, unless potentially you're a drop shipper. But pretty much every person that is listening to this episode, this is going to work for you. And so if you are a CEO, you don't blame the economy. You don't blame not having enough people. You don't blame the supply chain. I know all of those things are happening, but all of those things are outside of your control. So the CEO takes focused action to optimize the situation that they're in. If you can't control the overall economy, if you can't control the global supply chain, then you have to take charge of the things that are within your control. So don't be the shopkeeper. Now, it's just a term that we use here inside of the Retail Academy. The CEO is in control of their business, and the shopkeeper, and doesn't matter if you're online or you've got a physical store, you can still be a shopkeeper because the shopkeeper runs on the hamster wheel of hope. The shopkeeper crosses their fingers and hopes there will be enough sales, hopes there will be enough customers, hopes there will be enough visitors, hopes there'll be enough money in the bank to actually pay all the bills. So we don't want you to be the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper is also the same person who is going to whinge about how everything else is wrong with the world and they can't do anything about it. So they're going to be the people who whinge about how the economy is crap. They're going to whinge about how nobody is buying, or that they can't compete with chain stores and they don't have a massive marketing budget, or their parcels aren't being delivered, or you know what, it's all the government's fault. Trust me, I have heard every excuse in my decade and a half of being in the business. And if I'm honest, I probably used most of them at some point when I wasn't taking responsibility for my business as well. When I was in that shopkeeper mode, rather than being the CEO, it's a space with a lot of negativity. And I guess that's one of the signs that you can use to self-identify. If you are whinging about everything, if you're complaining, if you're taking a very negative view of your world, are you in control of what's happening? Or are you letting it all control you? So that's a little bit extra. That's not the strategy that Jill used. That's a bit of a bonus tip. But let's jump in to Jill's story and how she made $2,500 extra in 2 hours. All right, so a little bit of a backstory. Jill and her business are not unicorns. She isn't some business that you read about that has a huge amount of venture capital to spend to drive traffic and customers to her store. She relies on the money that the business makes to feed her family and to pay her mortgage, probably just like you. Her business is a retail nursery, so they sell all types of plants, but it also has a cafe and it's got homewares. It's kind of got all the things. If you've ever been to one of those really lovely, and I know I've got one just around the corner from me, really lovely nurseries where you can go there, you can have your coffee, you can pick up a gorgeous scented candle or even some furniture while you pick up your plants, it's the kind of place you can spend several hours. But as I mentioned, Jill is just a regular business owner. She doesn't have unlimited funds. She's not a chain store or a franchise. She's just an independent business like you. Now, Jill's been in business quite some time, and prior to implementing this strategy, what they would do as a business is sell off all of their leftover Christmas stock in a big post-Easter sale. So the stuff that they bought in for the holiday season, they would put in a storeroom, and then after Easter, which is generally the end of March, early April, and then sell all of the Easter and Christmas stuff off at 70%. So that means that obviously you buy stock in for Christmas in probably October, November. It sat on the shelf for October, November, December, sat in the storeroom for January, February, March, and potentially some of April. So up to 6 months worth of stock sitting on the shelves. So probably like a lot of you listening, December to April is their busiest time. And I mean, here in Australia, that's summer. So we're out there in the garden and we're doing all the things. Maybe for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, it's not as big, but when you put together that perfect storm of the Christmas season and it being summer, and here it's our school summer holidays, you can see how for a lot of businesses, they can earn up to 70% of their overall annual turnover in just that sort of between November and January, February period. So for Jill, that period extended out to about April. So those were their peak purchasing times. And so it kind of made sense to have a big sale after their peak purchasing period. So anything that was left over, they would just get rid of in one big sale. I mean, so far so good, I guess. You know, they've identified the fact that they have old inventory that needs to be moved, and they had a plan to get rid of it. But this year was a little bit different. Jill and her team had been listening to the podcast quite a bit and also reading the newsletters that we send out. And they did a two-pronged attack. The first thing that they did was they ran a pre-Christmas promo where for the 12 days before Christmas, they had 20% off a selected range each day. So one day they had 20% off indoor plants. The next day they had 20% off soft furnishings. The next it was 20% off candles. You get the picture. And what that did was allowed them to interact with their customers in a value-driven way but every single day in the lead up to Christmas. So people anticipated that they were going to get this email with some kind of promotion, which of course meant that their open rates went up and their purchases went up. Now, a lot of their purchases were in store, not online, but they knew from the click-through rate and people coming in and just having the conversation, oh, I saw in the newsletter that this is on sale today, that their emails were working. So they were pretty impressed with the sales that they got and the number of people that they interacted with. It was pretty popular, their 12 Days of Christmas sale, and in fact, they're going to replicate it again this year. Now, what they did next, for me, is the exciting part. After reading one of the newsletters that went out, and if you're on our newsletter database, we hammered this for quite a few newsletters, and it was all about managing inventory turnover and making sure that stuff does not sit on your shelves or in your warehouse before it actually starts costing you money. So Jill is a pretty smart cookie, and clearly she is an action taker. So she took the knowledge that was inside of those emails and she implemented it. And the thing is, it wasn't a scheduled promo. This was like down and dirty, just put it out there, see if it works. Done is better than perfect. And I love that messy, imperfect action, especially when it makes you lots of money. So you want to know what Jill did, right? 2 days before Christmas, so what's that, the 23rd of December, she sat down and worked out how much money she would lose if she waited until that big post-Easter sale to sell off all the seasonal stock. And she compared it to what it would be worth if she sold it before Christmas. Now remember, this was the 23rd of December. But what Jill had in her favor is she had built up all this engagement with her 12 days of Christmas. And so she leveraged that communication that she was having with her existing customers. So on the 23rd of December, Jill and her team decided to run a promo and sell off all of the Christmas stock. Now, they'd always focused on increased profit before Christmas and then pretty much writing off anything that was left over as a cost of doing business. And this is one of the traps that I see so many retail and e-commerce business owners falling into, is just having all of this cash sitting tied up and just writing it off as a cost of doing business, when in fact it is just, and some people might get a little bit upset with what I'm about to say here, but it's just being lazy. It is just bad management. It is being in that shopkeeper role and just crossing your fingers and hoping, rather than taking control of your business and acting from that CEO mindset. So Jill spent a little bit of time just wandering around the store, looking at what was left over of this holiday stock, and worked out that the retail value of that stock as it stood on the 23rd of December was about $5,600. Now, based on some historical data, they knew that they'd probably sell around about $600 worth of that stock in the next 2 days. So after Christmas, she was going to be left with around $5,000 worth of stock. So waiting until after Christmas, she was going to have around $5,000 worth of stock sitting in the storeroom for the next 3 to 4 months. Bearing in mind, it had already been on the shelves for 2 months anyway. $5,000 worth of stock that in that big post-Easter sale was going to be sold at 70% off. So let me do the math here for you. That works out to be $1,500. Now, I've already told you that Jill's a smart cookie, so she knows that it costs around $300 for her overheads as part of that sale. So that's staff to pack stock, take it off the shelves, store it, re-merchandise it when it's time to bring it back out again. Potentially some stuff gets damaged in the process and needs to be written off, but she knows it's around $300 that it's going to cost her as a result of putting this stuff in the storeroom. So the $1,500 in revenue that she's going to collect at the 70% off sale minus the $300 in overheads gives her a total profit of around $1,200 4 months from now. Now, on the surface, it doesn't really seem like a big deal, does it? I mean, it's only $1,200. But here's the thing. On the 23rd of December, the retail value of that stock was around $5,600. So with her trusty calculator in hand, Jill worked out that if they did a 40% off sale, that they would end up with around $3,360 in profit. Not only that, it wasn't going to cost her another $300 for the packing of stock in the sale and having to put the stuff away, store it, bring it all back out again, the damages that happen, which meant her actual net profit was going to be somewhere around $3,700. And of course, I have to ask you this, would you prefer to have $3,700 right now or $1,200 4 months from now? I mean, it's a simple no-brainer, right? So in some instances, they didn't think that 40% off was going to work. So they kind of mixed and matched it a little bit. Some things they sold 2 for 1, buy one, get one free. For their potted Christmas trees, their live Christmas trees, they sold them with a bonus box of decorations. Everything else was pretty much a flat 40% off. And the result was, you already know, because it's the title of this episode, they made $2,500 in 2 hours. Yep, the sale didn't last 2 days. The sale lasted 2 hours because they literally sold everything. Now, sitting over here with my retail strategist hat on, this stuff makes my heart absolutely sing because Jill now has $3,660 of cash sitting in her bank account before Christmas. She can use that cash to buy fresh stock. She can use that cash to buy things that turn over quickly and make a profit. She can use that cash to bring in new items or try out new items that will keep her customers engaged and coming back to the website and back to the store. She wasn't going to waste space on shelves or in the stockroom. She wasn't going to lose money on shrinkage when things were either damaged or stolen, and she didn't have to pay to insure it. So the money side of this is good, right? But let me tell you why I think this strategy worked so well for Jill and her business. So first up, it's because she leveraged the power of communication. I mean, you know how hard it is to get someone to come to your store, to a physical store, let alone come to your physical store day after day after day. I mean, the mind just boggles, right? But by having great communication and leveraging her online systems as well as her bricks and mortar presence, she was able to keep those customers engaged and wanting more. Now, in that lead up to Christmas, I heard a lot of people, I saw a lot of posts in Facebook groups about retailers complaining that their sales were down. But they wouldn't send more emails. They were worried that they were going to upset their customers. Now, the only reason you upset your customers is if your emails are not filled with anything valuable. So what Jill did was she made sure that those emails were valuable to her customers, which of course meant when she did that last minute promo, it was going to reach a maximum number of customers. But I don't think that that's the only reason that this promotion was successful. I think a lot of it had to do with customer experience because, as you know, there are always going to be bargain shoppers. There's the people who wait until everything is 70% off and just take what's left over. They're not particularly fussy. They just want to grab a bargain. And that is totally okay. We should never overlook those people because they are a vital part of our sales funnel. And those bargain shoppers, they're the kinds of people, and hey, I am one of those bargain shoppers too, especially when it comes to Christmas stuff. I never buy wrapping paper before Christmas. Well, unless you count the following Christmas as being before Christmas, but I always buy my wrapping paper when it is 75% off after Christmas. So the bargain hunters, they're going to be okay buying in Easter, packing that stuff in a box and putting it in the attic or the basement, or in my case, under the stairs, and completely forgetting that they ever bought that stuff. Can you tell I'm speaking from experience? Yes. But look, that isn't everyone. In fact, that's not the majority of your customers. However, you do have a lot of customers who love a bargain if they can use the thing that they're about to buy. So this was me before Christmas. On Christmas Eve, actually, I discovered I had no placemats for the Christmas table, and I'd left it really late because the whole COVID situation, I actually had no idea how many people were going to turn up. And I wanted these beautiful paper placemats. But I wasn't going to shell out $30 for placemats if nobody was coming. And so Christmas Eve, I went up to the shop, and they were smart cookies too, because they had put their Christmas stock on sale after lunch on Christmas Eve. So I managed to nab a bargain and was super excited because I still got to use this stuff for Christmas Day. And I really do think that that was the secret of Jill selling out in 2 hours, is the customers who, maybe like me, had left everything to the last minute, or everything was a little bit up in the air with COVID. They were like, if I can get that thing, great. If not, it won't be the end of the world. But they were delighted when they got a bargain that they could actually use in time for Christmas. So that offer drew people in and got people over the purchasing barrier that wouldn't necessarily have come in for the Easter 70% off sale. So in this scenario, total win for the customers and a $2,500 extra win for Jill that she can now use to invest back into the business, or hey, maybe she can just pay herself a Christmas bonus. So what I'm hoping that you're getting from this episode is the sales strategy itself isn't actually the key focus. I mean, any of you can go and have a promo to get rid of seasonal stock. The takeaway from this episode is that moving from that shopkeeper role to CEO role didn't actually cost Jill anything, but it did mean she had to step up and take control of her business and just stop doing things the way they'd always been done. Now, sure, there was a bit of a perfect storm moment here that meant she sold out in 2 hours, but actually Jill had given herself 2 days to get rid of this stock, and there was no downside. There was no risk associated with this promotion. I mean, the risk is actually holding on to the stock because of all of the costs, the hidden costs, the indirect costs, and the obvious costs of holding on to stock. So I began this episode saying how frustrated I get when people don't take action when they're handed the answers to their questions. The shopkeeper will find every excuse as to why something won't work, instead of taking either a calculated risk or using the data that they have to make business decisions. So all those people who were posting in Facebook groups in the lead up to Christmas about how their sales were down, when I posted that they should try sending out a few more targeted emails, they just would reply back with, "Oh, people have email fatigue. Nobody's opening my emails." Instead of getting out there and trying something different, trying a different style of email, sending out a targeted offer to a segment of their customer database instead of just blasting everybody with the same stuff. Most importantly, what I love about Jill is she didn't wait to have all of the answers. She didn't procrastinate and say, "Oh, I have to go and spend hours researching different types of sales strategies." She took some free information that was given to her by an expert in the industry, and she went and implemented it and walked away with $3,660 cash in her pocket rather than $1,500 4 months from now. The compounding effect of money says that that $2,500 extra that she's got can net her tens of thousands of dollars every single year as she reinvests it in inventory that turns over again and again and again. And that is what being in business is all about. Okay, so there you have it. Jill's simple strategy to sell off her seasonal stock before Christmas that made her an extra $2,500. You can see there's nothing unicorn about it. It didn't cost her anything extra. Messy, imperfect action, but it netted results. If Jill had spent that time playing on Canva, she wouldn't have made that money. So before I leave you for today, I just wanted to say that if you do think that you need help with managing your inventory, whether it is understanding why your stock isn't selling in the first place, or the formula that we use inside of the Retail Academy to work out when stock becomes aged inventory, and some great strategies that you can implement to get that stock gone, then I do have a paid masterclass and action plan that you can grab over at selenaknight.com/inventory-training. And if you're walking the dog or you're exercising and you don't have a pen and paper to write that down, you can just click through to the show notes and you'll find the link there. And you can get instant access for less than $10. So really, you have no excuses, right? Because you would only have to sell one thing to get a return on investment, to make your money back. So stop making excuses. Jill didn't make any excuses and she has all that extra cash in her pocket, and you now have the opportunity to go and either implement some of this information that you've learned for free, or if you feel like you need extra help for less than $10, you can get my exclusive training to help you get that old stock gone. Alrighty, thank you so much for listening in. I would love it if you found this helpful, if you could leave me a review. I don't very often ask for reviews, but I know I need to up my game in that part. So leave me a review on your platform of choice, and I will see you back here, same time, next week. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.